Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tayo, the adult immigrant. It's been such a long time, but I'm happy to be here. I've been sharing as much as I can on my Instagram, but it's always just so hard to come here to record a video and share. But today, I'm talking about something that recently happened to me. I pivoted to tech from HR. I'm now what you call a Scrum Master. And I'm talking to some people in my community, my HR practitioner community this evening, and about how I made that happen for myself. And I just thought that it would be nice to also record this video so that we can kill two birds with one stone. That way, I'm able to share with them and also share with you guys on how the journey has been for me so far. So stay tuned and relax and enjoy the video. Ciao. I'm honestly very happy to be here because it feels like full cycle to me because I remember like 2 years ago when I came into Canada and I was so clueless on what to do with my career. I always leaned on like these conversations to actually figure things out. And I don't want to be one of those that when you get your miracle, you run away from church. But I've not been very, I've not been very consistent. But then I was very, very consistent because I was really, really, struggling. I wanted to actually get all the knowledge and figure things out from the various conversations that we have. That being said, I feel very honored. The Huddle team, thank you for calling me on to actually take on this conversation. I'm very, very passionate about. And I'm very grateful. So I'm going to go straight into it. I'm very time conscious. Well, I guess with my new profession, everything is time boxed. So we're very quick. We just want to do it. Daily Scrum, retrospective, everything, time. So I'm looking at my time. I do not have slides today because I want this to be a conversation. I'm hoping that we have questions already for me because this has been promoted in the community for a while now. So if I were you, you have your questions ready already. But I like if you've spoken to me directly, one way or the other, you know that I like to tell stories with my story because there's nothing better than your original story. No one can take that away from you. So I'm going to walk you all through my journey, and I'm sure that you have questions along the line. So I arrived Canada 2020, February 1st to be precise. And proud to then, in Nigeria, I worked as an HR professional for just a year because I'm what to call like an accidental HR professional. I was in finance for about 7 to 8 years. I got into, and while I was in finance, I got involved in a revenue assurance project in my team, and it was done using waterfall. And waterfall means the traditional way of doing project management. And we ended up doing that project for about 2 years. After that 2 years, it was kind of, I don't know, call it midlife crisis, call it whatever you want, but I knew I was coming to Canada already. So going back to debit and credit and all the account receivable and stuff in finance was not interesting to me. So I was looking for an out. And a friend of mine, sometimes your friends know you more than yourself. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine there in the office, like, Ty, why don't you just go to HR? This HR thing will fit you. And I'm like, you know how it is in Nigeria where you've been something for 8 years and you suddenly say you want to change. People will think you're crazy or you are not, how they will think you're not successful in that. That's why you're trying something else. Coupled the fact that I tried to do ACCA for so long, I was unable to complete it. So I just felt like that wasn't working out for me. And it was going to be hard to move up the ladder without that certification, ACC or ICANN. And I was just fed up of doing the exam without just passing. You study, you pay dollars, pounds then, and you just don't pass. So there was a project in HR at the time. And, one of the things that was very valuable, worked in my favor, was the fact that I was involved in other things within the organization. So people could actually see what my skills were, irrespective of me being an accountant at the time. So when I went to HR, I told them that, they should give me a try. Let me do this. I have this, I feel like I can do this. And, my director said, yeah, he's so confident I can do it. I literally got into HR with no experience whatsoever, and we were able to work on those projects and several other projects within that 1 year that I worked in HR. So one thing I observed while working in HR for me personally was it was so easy for me to shine. I was just like, why was I in finance for forever? Finance, yes, you do debit and credit, you do financial stuff, you do Excel, you do all those things. But it was just so hard for me to fit in because the playful side of me will always show. And my bosses will say, Tayo, I know you're working, but you need to be seen as working. I'm like, what are these guys talking about? You want me to do AI service? But in HR, me being me was just enough. So fast forward to when I came to Canada, I wanted to go into HR, but my resume was speaking a lot to being accountant more than HR. Then the pandemic hit, and friends, like I was in a circle of great friends who just said, you know what, Tayo, the whole world's going to shut down. Why don't you use this pandemic year to go back to school and then use that as your resilience story? So when people ask you, like, it's not like anybody knew what was going to happen, but it just fit into that situation at the time. So I immediately, applied for OSAP. I've shared videos about on my YouTube channel. Applied for OSAP, got admission into Sheridan College, studied human resource management, postgraduate, which I did for 2 semesters. We had a co-op component. So, and then I went to do my co-op in the final semester. Co-op was, I did HR obviously, and it was mostly HR projects. So I worked in Cape Game Loft, is a gaming company here in Toronto, and they had all this, when HR department have all these HR projects that they left pending, but they just didn't have anybody to do it. So I came in, I helped them do some of the analytics, some other projects that they've been working on, performance review project and all that, just for 3 months. And then I went ahead to be to work as a recruiter somewhere here in Toronto to Ian Martin Group. It's called Raise Recruiting now. And I worked there for 10 years, 1 year, why am I saying 10? 1 year before I moved into my current role as a Scrum Master in TD Bank. So that's kind of an overview of my journey. And some things I didn't say along the line was, I did say it. I did some projects in finance. So I had some transferable skills. My company then, sent a couple of us on process improvement, agile training, because they wanted to start doing projects that way, the agile way of doing things. So I was lucky to be part of people that that were selected for that. So we worked on projects using the agile way of doing things, and even though it was not full-blown agile, because you know how the most difficult thing in life is change for people. People are used to set ways, and then you now tell them they should be doing daily Scrum. The BA should be gathering requirement. What are you guys talking about? But we, as much as we could, we had a coach, a consultant coach that we will always refer to. But honestly, between you and I didn't even know that at the end of the day, this was going to be what I will be doing full-time as a job. But I tapped into that opportunity. I got that training and I held on to it. So one of the things that made me decide to, pivot to tech and Scrum was when I was applying for roles, the HR roles, when I was trying to get a core position, I realized that I understood the hierarchy of roles in HR in Canada, HR coordinator, generalist, before you now be like a specialist or some, the hierarchy. And it looked like my years of experience would be discounted because to them, I was a fresh HR graduate, just coming out of school and trying to get a job. And that didn't really go down with me because when I was interviewing, I'll be telling them my expectation when it comes to compensation, and they'll be like, okay. I'm like, okay, what can I do? So thank goodness I'm one person that does a lot of self-reflection. I don't lie to myself. I would, can you hear me? Yes. So I don't lie to myself. I would sit down and reflect and, ask people around me that what can I do? So, in the buzz in our Nigerian community, 6-figure, tech, okay, how am I going to, I just got a degree in HR. Am I going to get rid of that degree in HR and just go and be looking for some tech roles? Then I started to look, that's why you have to have great people around you anyway. I remember I came for a huddle here earlier this year that Phoebe anchored, and it was all about HR projects. I've been doing HR, I know I was the most notorious person on the call that day because I came armed with a lot of questions for her. And afterwards, I started following her all over the world, because I just wanted to know more. Because I know that I've been doing projects. Some of them were not HR, most of them were not HR, but project is project anyway, irrespective of where you look at it. It's just the same, model of, starting to finishing. And I knew that I loved HR. How am I going to, combine my love for HR with projects and just get a job that pays good money, Then I decided that, what, this towards the end of last year, I wanted to, how they say Black people are over certified and all that, but certifications give us access to the doors. Like if I go around telling people I've done projects without actually having a PMP, how am I going to sell that to people? It's going to be hard. So I decided I was going to go on a development plan for myself. And I went ahead to write the PMP examination. And all my focus then was on just getting an HR project role. That's why I was very notorious on that call with Phoebe the other day. And while I was doing the exam and studying for it, one thing that really captivated me and made me so excited was Agile. If you're familiar with project management or PMP, there are two ways to manage projects. So we have what we call the old school way, which is like waterfall. Waterfall is like the whole way of handling projects. So you have the scope, the well-scripted scope of a project. Like I want to build a bungalow. That's the project. So you now start to figure out how you move from that idea to actually building that bungalow. And you'll be following some steps, some predetermined steps. That's what they call waterfall. However, the world that we live in now, because everyone wants instant gratification, you want now. You post a picture, you want to check in 10 minutes how many likes you have, how many views you have. The world is moving away from having traditional approach to project management to what we call the agile way of handling projects. So there's something called the Agile Manifesto, which is basically explains that. So under this Agile umbrella, we have several frameworks under the Agile umbrella. And one of the framework is called Scrum, which is what we're practicing in the organization that I work with now. And what Scrum is, I wrote it down because I wanted to spell it out in layman's term, because when I say I'm a Scrum master, I say, oh, you're a master. I'm like, no, I'm not a master. And I always have to explain what that is. So Scrum itself, not Scrum Master now, Scrum is a team approach to project management that aligns with the Agile Manifesto. And what that means is that so we are trying to deliver on a project or some goal. You have a goal now. I want to lose weight, for example. Let me use that because that keeps reoccurring in my life anyway. So I want to lose weight. Instead of saying, okay, I want to lose weight, I'll build a scope of how I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to lose 50 kg in. What I would do as an agile practitioner, someone that works with an agile mindset, is break it down. So I'm going to lose 5 kg in 1 month. I don't know if that's possible, but let's just say it's possible. I will lose, then that's me delivering on a bit of my overall goal, which is I want to lose weight. So maybe I want to lose 100 kg, for example, if that's possible. I want to lose 100 kg is my ultimate goal. But instead of waiting for 2 years to lose that 100 kg, what Agile or Scrum would do is we will start to celebrate wins iteratively. So in 2 weeks, how many kg can I lose? And 2 weeks meaning 2 week sprint. That's what we say. You in the Agile world, you hear sprint. We're in a sprint because the iteration is always in either in 2 weeks or maximum of 4 weeks sprint. So you are dropping value to your customers in iteration in little bits. So think about updates that you have on your phone, for example. If you're using Samsung, recently we had a very fantastic update on our Samsung. I love Samsung, so I'll talk about that. And whenever I hear of an update or updates on an app that I love or updates, all I think about, because now I'm now in product management, all I think about is there's a group of there's a team, there's a Scrum team somewhere sitting in Silicon Valley or maybe Philippines or in Nigeria, working to deliver to the customer, which is you and I, what we want in little bits. So that's why this month you can have an update, so you as a customer, they always have a medium to find out what the customer wants, for example. So you as a customer, you say, I want the bed to be flying on the app. So they get that, they come, maybe the first bed will have his wings up. It's not flying yet, but it will tell you there's an update. So you see, as a customer, you see the update as a bed flying. You're not happy, but they're still working. It's just that they just want you to know that they're working. So in another 2 weeks, they would now give you a bed with one hand flying. That's another sprint. That's another iteration of the product that you want. Then in the last 2 weeks, they give you the flying bed, and you are happy as a customer. Then suddenly you don't want, the bed is okay. You want something, you want the bed to be jumping. So the wants of the customers keeps changing. So that's why it's almost impossible for project teams to now be working using traditional approach to project management, because by the time you deliver in 2 years, what the customer wants has changed. So that I hope you guys, I was trying to paint a picture that would be very clear, because I always get it a lot that, okay, HR, what does Agile and HR, what do they have together? So I'm going to go now to my role. So I work in an HR transformation team in TD, that our overall goal, the problem we're trying to solve is the problem of attracting, hiring, and onboarding candidates into TD. So that's our problem statement. So as an HR professional or as a Scrum Master, I'm working with those small groups of the groups I talked about when I was talking about delivering value in bits, in iteration. I'm working with the transformation team to ensure that they're delivering bits and pieces of that goal. So the goal is a 2 or 3 year goal. So I can't sit down and tell you that, oh, the problem of hiring, because we actually divided into 3. So I'm a Scrum Master in the middle pillar, which is the higher pillar. It will be impossible to tell management that we'll deliver on it in 2 years, when maybe a Scotiabank, for example, is working on something and they'll be delivering bits. Nobody's going to wait for that. So as the Scrum Master in the higher team, Scrum team, I'm working with them to ensure that they are delivering value in iteration. I'm not going to go into details what we do, but what I want to do now is tell you what a Scrum Master does and now relate it to HR. So basically what I'm doing right now, facilitating this meeting, talking to you guys, that's one of the major things that a Scrum Master does. So I stand as an Agile coach in a team that actually ensures that they adhere to all the principles of the Agile Manifesto. So the team is focused on actually doing that work, but we do have tools and a framework that we need to, because the bank has gone Agile. They don't want you to deliver in 2020 and only come to us when you have finished the project. No one is going to wait for it. They want the situation where you'll be delivering in bits and pieces. They look at it and say, okay, you're in the right direction. Okay. So all you have to do, they'll give you more, they change your scope, they'll add, it's small to it, they add ata, epo, yes, I hope you're all you, but they'll add oil and pepper and tell you that, okay, this is fine. However, we can think of this approach too. So by 2023, 2024, 2 years time, when we can beat our chest and say we are done with this project, we will have delivered on several iterations to the point where the customer, which is the management, the hiring managers, the recruiters, and even the colleagues that are coming in, they are satisfied 100% that we've listened to them and we actually have put into work all they asked for. So that's what the Scrum team is all about. So I will facilitate, I will coach the team into the Agile way of doing things. And one thing I wanted to point out is, as a Scrum Master, if you have any idea about project management and all that, I don't really have to be an HR professional to be a Scrum Master in an HR transformation team. I don't. However, from what I've seen so far, there's always that advantage of you understand being a subject matter, not an expert, because you're not the one doing the work. You're just supporting those doing the work. But there's always an advantage where they're talking talent acquisition, they're talking recruitment, which is what I was a recruiter before. I've done projects in HR, and you understand the language. They don't have to be saying, oh, TIE or TA. What TA means is so talent acquisition. That's what they call the umbrella of where recruiters, when they are sourcing. Nobody's got time for that, because whether you like it or not, those roles are not, this role is not an entry-level role that there's room for, they'll be telling you there's room for training and all that. No, because to whom you keep, Nigerians always talk about six-figure roles, tech roles. To whom much is given, a lot is expected. So there's really no room for, there's no room for you being pampered to the extent where they'll be telling you what A means, what Z means. Nobody's got time for that. So the advantage I had was because I met a couple of people that also actually interviewed for the same role. And me, I said earlier, I don't lie, I don't fool myself. We started comparing those that, okay, what do you have that I have? What do you have that I don't have? Why didn't you get it? Because honestly, when you get to the point where you can listen to feedback and go back to the drawing board as an individual, half of your problem is solved. So I was very tripped when I got those individuals reach out to me and said, oh, it's because you have the Scrum. Oh, it's because you have HR. Because it sounded like they liked me. It looked like we were having that conversation. When you are having interviews and you're like, this job is mine, but they reverted by saying, we had to go with another candidate, only for them to see on LinkedIn a few weeks later say, happy to share that I'm a Scrum Master in TD. So we've evaluated it and we saw that, I think that my case is a case of opportunities, preparation, coming together, because I had project management. I went ahead, I was intrigued by Agile when I was doing my PMP. So I went ahead to, think of, the PMP would open the PMP will open your mind to all the aspects of Agile, because Scrum is not the only. We have Agile, we have the SAFE, SAFE, we have Kanban. There's several frameworks under the Agile Manifesto, but the most common one that everyone knows is the Scrum Master, the Scrum team, and all that. So Agile, the project management preparation and all that actually opened my mind to the possibility of agility, having an Agile mindset. And then I looked at myself and looked at, which of these things would fit well into my personality. So self-awareness is very key. And because, one of the things that we had to do was read the Agile Manifesto. I've said that a lot, so maybe put that down and check it out. And then we also had to read what we call the Scrum Guide. It's a 14-pager, easy read that literally tells you all the participants of a Scrum team and what their roles are. So when I looked at that, I started to put myself in different positions. So in a Scrum team, we have a Scrum Master, which is my role. We have someone called the Product Owner, who we also call the voice of the customer. I'll tell you who that person is. And then we have developers, if we are in a software development company. But in this case, in HR transformation, we'll have people like HR specialists, specialized HR analysts, depending on what the project is. So in our case, we wanted people that were specialized talent acquisition professionals to be our developers, because they are the ones doing the work. Do you guys get? Because if I was working in a software development company now, I'll have a Scrum Master, a product owner, and I'll have developers actually doing the work. I'm just saying all this so that you can see the possibilities for HR professionals that want to move into that line. You don't have to know how to code. Just be good at what you do. I know I reached out to a couple in the community the other day when we're trying to recruit for the HR specialist roles in my team and the product owner roles in my team too. I was so happy that, we got candidates within our community that were ready for those kind of roles. It was amazing. I was even reluctant because I've really not heard about it a lot in our community, but people are preparing, guys, don't sleep on it. Because after I got my role, and obviously, I like to make noise on LinkedIn. I've seen a lot of recruiters, reach out to me on DM talking about these opportunities. So a lot of organizations are looking at, carving out HR projects, be it compensation. I have a friend that works in a company. They are working on is a Scrum Master too in the company. It's a public owned company, and they are using the agile way of doing things to actually work on a compensation, a compensation project. So it's not restricted to hiring or attracting or onboarding. Think about any HR project that you have done as a person in HR, and imagine you delivering in bits and pieces instead of getting it at the beginning and going to work for months and then delivering. What if your scope changes? What if the customers, for example, they don't want what they initially, months have passed, things change, human beings change, the needs of individuals change. After you worked on it for 6 months, they now tell you that actually what they told you 6 months ago, we thought nobody knew there was a pandemic, for example, there was going to be a pandemic, for example. Imagine in January of 2020, start embarking on a project as an HR professional, and then the pandemic happened. How are you going to change things? So you have to, even in the roles that we are right now as HR professionals, if you think about delivering your projects the agile way, it goes a long way in you delivering faster and making your customers even happier, because at every stage, 2 weeks interval, be it 1 month interval, you are going back to them to show them what you've done so far, and they'll tell you right there and there whether you are on the right path or not. You don't have to wait at the end of 1 year to actually get that feedback. So I wrote here too, because I didn't have a slide, I said that earlier, but I wanted to ensure that I touch points that I kind of figured that I would want to ask questions about if I was on the other side. So I've talked about the journey, I've talked about the transition, and I've talked about the Scrum Master role, and I've also talked about the positions in HR, in the Scrum team as HR professional. Product owners, we have product owners in our team. They're actually HR professionals, specialists in their field, as I said earlier. So if it's a talent acquisition project, then if you're a talent management professional specialist, you can position yourself as a product owner for an HR project that is going the agile way. So I wanted to talk for 30 minutes and allow for questions for the next 30 minutes. So this is 28 minutes already. I don't know, I think I've exhausted all the things I have in mind. So I'm going to leave the floor I said project, gosh. I'm going to leave the floor for questions. And I hope that you guys are like me and you have enough questions to actually last us for 30 minutes. So I'm leaving the floor open for you guys. Tolu, do you have any questions?
Thank you so much, Tayo. I guess we haven't seen any questions in the group.
Oh, we have questions.
While you guys keep that,
I've seen questions.
I did have a question that I wanted to put out. I'm glad that you said that you don't have to, have an HR expertise, to kind of get into this, but just to inspire us a lot more. I'm also happy that you kind of mentioned a lot of what you actually do in HR and how it mixes with that, with that project management capabilities. For me, my question would be getting into, knowing what you already know right now with the little HR experience you had even before, adding that project management / Scrum Master certification. Where would you say that I could start from, like if I wanted to get into that Scrum Master? And I know you mentioned, I keyed into something that you said that, you self-reflect and all that, like, just work-wise and personal-wise, like where would you recommend someone like me start from if that's also like an ultimate goal?
Okay. So I think that one thing is that I don't want a situation where everyone is saying they want to go into Scrum or project because everyone is doing it, I think that the first step for you, just like I became an enthusiast when I did my PMP, is, take a look at the Agile Manifesto. It tells you exactly how, and it's a document online. It's by scrum.org, so you can check it online. Agile Manifesto basically tells you about the umbrella of all the frameworks under the Agile. Agile is not a framework. We always try not to call it a framework or just under Agile. Yeah. When you have done that and you are still excited after reading it, you are still excited. Okay. Then the safest way to go in or to know more is to look at what we call the Scrum Guide. So the Scrum Guide is also a very easy read document I mentioned earlier. It tells you what the Scrum team is. So under the Agile Manifesto, we have different, but the most common one is Scrum. That's why I'd rather you start from Scrum. So read the Agile Guide, the Scrum Guide is a 14-pager, easy read. It tells you what Scrum is, the different roles under Scrum and all that. If you are still excited after that, you go back and do a self-reflection based on what you read about these roles. Where would you fit in as a professional? Some of us are specialists in our roles, compensation specialists. Some of us are talent acquisition specialists, employee, so there are different, there's the center of excellence under HR is more than one. So whatever specialist you are and you love, you know what I mean? Go ahead and start to see yourself as either, if after you've done your self-reflection, yeah, because when you do your self-reflection, then you know where you fit in. Do you fit in as a product owner? Because you're a specialist and you love that aspect of HR so much that you don't want to leave it. Or you're like me, you just want to empower people to do their specialist work. And that's the Scrum Master role. Okay. So when you do that kind of self-reflection and you self-reflection, then you know where you sit, then you have to get certified. I've told you guys, everyone says Black people are over-certified, but it's going to be hard for you to get access into the door without some alphabets in front of your name. And that's the reality. Those alphabets might seem trivial, but they're game changers. This is how I see it. So you go ahead, you take a certification, you pay money to do it, you sacrifice your time and your sweat, your blood. But in Canada, if you are able to position yourself well enough, the return on investment is almost instant. So see it that way and be encouraged. So if after your self-reflection, you've decided that you want to do the Scrum Master or a product owner, those are the positions that the prominent position on our team, then you get certified. So for the Scrum Master, there's a basic certification it's carried out by two organizations, more than two, but the most popular ones are the CSM by Scrum Alliance, and there's the PSM by scrum.org. Both of them require that you take like a 24-hour training, 2 days training, and then you now have access to sit for the exam. The exam is easy, it's open book, so anyone can pass it. That's the first level for Scrum Masters. You can also go to those websites to see what the parts, so they have Scrum Master part, they have product owner part, they have all those parts. I'm going to get to your question, Chichi. So if you decide to be a product owner, there's also there's an equivalent of the same one for product owner. So what I would say to not take a lot of our time is to go to scrum.org or Scrum Alliance, or just reach out to me. After this call, we can move it to the parking lot. That's what Scrum teams do. They don't solution on calls. They say, let's move it to the parking lot. We can talk about that. You can reach out. When you do that, the most gracious thing now is that a lot of Nigerians in our community in Nigeria, they've gone ahead to create coaching plans for individuals who want to pivot to those roles. Because whether you like it or not, those roles, even my role is an entry-level Scrum role, but it's not an entry-level role in the bank. So what that means is that you have to have some level of authority, of intellect, of experience to actually excel in those roles. You know what I mean? So there's so many coaches, good coaches, there's so many of them out there, but I'm able to, from my experience so far, I can, if you want to move to the parking lot too, I can share some to you, but you have to have done the other things, do the certification, then you get coached. People, they coach you. I know that a lot of people have been coached here. I have some people here on the call. They coach you to actually get past interview stage, get the job, and support your first few days into the role. Because those roles, the expectation is you get into the work and get working. Zero tolerance to I'm learning, they will just fire you. That's the reality. I'm not trying to scare anyone, but you to whom much is given, a lot, you are going to get a role. I'm talking about a role that the minimum salary is 100K. So what are you expecting? You have to get into the role and get the ball rolling immediately. So that's the position of the coach. They will coach you to ace your interview, tidy up your resume. Not to lie, we're not lying on resume. Everyone has done something. For you to move from Nigeria to Canada, that is a project, whether you did it yourself or not. We've all embarked on projects directly or indirectly in our lives. And where those coaches come in is they help you think about those projects that you've done and help you articulate it into resumes. So your resume will be speaking to projects you have done rather than your operational skills, all the things that you've done in jobs. So I'm going to pause now. I hope you got what I said. Yeah, then if you want more, we can move that to the parking lot. They said I should pause for questions because I'm so passionate. I can talk forever. So let me see.
Yeah, I was just gonna get into.
There's so many questions.
There's so many questions. You were just talking about certifications, and someone had asked that how long did it take you to read and pass the PMP in Scrum?
So PMP, to be honest, it took me 3 months. I did a video about it on my YouTube channel. If you go on YouTube, look for Faddtayo, Faddtayo, you will see the video I did on my study paths. I'm not going to go into that. I always do those videos because of times like this, because I realize I say the same thing over and over again, but it's not very hard to do. If you put in your all in 6 weeks to 8 weeks, it's achievable, even less. My friend came from Nigeria, watched the video, and he did it in 2 weeks. That one is another one on entirely. I don't know if that one is another one entirely, but it depends on how hungry you are as an individual. But personally, because I was working and I had a life, I like to chop life, so everything joined. I was able to do it in 3 months, but you can do it less than that. So it's all about you. There's a video on my YouTube channel, explaining my path. The description section of it actually outlines what I did step by step, so you can check it out.
All right, thank you for that. Chinwe asked that does the project owner create the backlog?
It's product owner. So yeah, so the product owner is AKA voice of the customer. So what this person does is goes to the customer, find out what bed they want to fly in the air, they want everything. They now come to us. So they stand in between us, the Scrum team, and the customer, which is in our case, in my project, is the colleague that is coming into the bank and the hiring manager, recruiters, and the business as a whole, because they are the one that identified that there's a problem. So when they get all those problems from them, they come to us and translate it in terms that we understand. So in some teams, we have business analysts that work with product owners to actually create those stories, user stories. And those user stories are, I know I'm going technical now, but this person that asked this question definitely knows a thing or two or a million about what we're talking about. So these user stories are what we have in our backlog. This session is not about Agile, so I'm not going to go into the details. So in some teams, we don't have business analysts. So the product owner is responsible for translating in terms that everybody understands. And that's user stories. They're the ones that keep, and those user stories are what we have in our backlog. So yes, but in some teams too, we have business analysts, business system analysts, and those ones, they work with the product owner, but they are the ones that actually write user stories that we have in our backlog. So it depends on the company, depends on how the company runs. But if you are positioning yourself as a Scrum Master, as a product owner, it is possible that you'll be saddled with the responsibility to actually write user stories. So you have to be prepared for that. But it's not hard.
Okay. All right. I hope that answers your question, Chinwe. Lamide asked that, what roles did you exactly apply to? So particularly because she has 5 years of HR experience, and there's CPHR candidate and a Scrum Master, but the applications they've been putting through has not been falling through. So they wanted to know what steps to take. What would you advise?
So I actually applied for both because I joined this kind of call earlier in the year, and I was so inspired by Phoebs. He's on the call, Phoebs.
Hi,
And hi, Phoebs. And I was my focus, to be honest, was on HR projects. I was looking at roles that was like doing like HR, like implementation of, because most companies are not yet using Agile, so they will call it project. So it could be Workday implementation. It could be one of those tools that we use. Is always projectized, and they don't use Agile ways of doing things yet. So they still use the waterfall. So I was applying for roles in that space, but this particular role just fell on my lap. To be honest with you guys, I'm not even going to come here and lie to you. I just like you, the person that asked the question, you have all this, and then you are looking in one direction, and then suddenly something comes in your direction, which can come, because after I applied for this role and got this role, I've gotten a lot of people from other organizations that want to adopt. So people sometimes, if you're very familiar with HR, you know that they don't even know what they want yet until they see what other people are doing. So even in the organization that you are right now, if you are an enthusiast, an Agile enthusiast, you know about these things, you can start to bring in Agile way of doing things and just show them the possibility of delivering an iteration without them even knowing. You can start from there. Otherwise, just you have to go. You honestly, I didn't even know this role. I didn't even know that it existed. I was also referred, just like the way I refer someone. But when people see that you have all this qualification, you just have to keep telling people that matter, people in your community and your circle of influence, that this is what I have. And those opportunities come in, and you never even know. They just come into you, and they will forward it to you, and then you see that it's just the best role. Because when I saw this role between you and all of you, I just knew that this was going to be a game changer for me personally. This is because it was exactly what I wanted. The amount of effort I put into actually getting this role, you think I'm writing thesis for an exam, because something just told me that if I don't get this one, it will just be hard to get another. So there's always an outlier. There will be an organization that somebody is forward thinking and knows that delivering in Agile is better than, so you cannot relent. You need to be ready for those positions when they come. So it's not enough to have the certification in Scrum. You and I know that certification is easy peasy, lemon squeezy. You have to go more than that. Get coached, get in the community of practice. There's so many of them. Jump on their webinars, jump on their calls, see how people are doing their daily Scrum at their retrospective, just so that you can be prepared for opportunities like that. Because when they come, you have to justify all those certifications that you say you have.
Speaking of certification, Chichi is asking that if you already have PSM and SAFe, is it reasonable to add PMP as extra certification in order to get a Scrum role?
No, to get a Scrum, no, unless maybe you are trying to open up for project roles in general.
And what exactly did you do to stand out in your interview with TD?
I think that what I did, so I had 3 different levels of interview. And the first one was like, you are all HR professionals. So, the first one is the culture, do you fit in the culture check? It was more of like HR professionals and seeing, knowing the journey. And just like what I told you, I have experience, all the experiences that I bring forth. And there was a technical one, definitely, I had an Agile coach. If you know anything about TD, like we have a a full army of Agile coaches. How they keep them on their payroll, I still don't understand. But we have very, very, Agile coaches. So we had Agile coaches and product owner or something on my interview, and that was basically technical. That's why I told the person I asked the question earlier that being certified is not enough. It is important people understand that these roles are new. So even though they don't expect you to have all the experience, you have to have more than theoretical knowledge of Scrum. That one is for sure. That's where coaches come in. You get into simulation groups where you will all be working on projects and somebody will be a product owner. There's so many people that do those things now for people that are trying to pivot into that space. Because if you come into a conversation with me as the Agile coach and I'm trying to, what is your worst, what's your best ceremony in Agile? And then you now come and give me, you now say, maybe daily Scrum or something like that. My expectation is use that opportunity as an open-ended question. Tell me all the ceremonies and tell me why the daily Scrum is your best. And I will know the difference between you that read it and you that have actually lived it. That's where coaching and being in community or practice, that's their place in the whole preparation. Because that interview, I couldn't tell them that I couldn't, even though the role that I had, it was an hybrid. It wasn't a full, I wasn't called a Scrum Master in that role. It was a role that is centered on training, but I was able to, thankfully, we're able to play out some of those things that they use in the Agile lifestyle, the Agile way of doing things. And I was able to defend those things in the conversation. So it's important you have the certification, you need to plug yourself into community of practice and find ways that you can simulate the roles. Because when you have those opportunities for those interviews, you cannot position yourself as someone who has no clue. No one is going to hire you. You have to come in, even like my company now, they are training me at first as if I don't even know anything Agile. But every training that I have, I've been to under the umbrella of TD, I always stand out because it's always so glaring that I'm not a novice. This is not my first encounter with Agile or Scrum, because whatever they teach me is just an addition, and it shows in the kind of conversations I have with my coaches and the people that actually train us. So please go further to actually get yourself plugged into communities of practice. There's several of them, and Agile is Agile everywhere in the world. So the framework is the same, it's standard. So be it in Trinity and Tobago, or whatever they call it, or Ghana. I have one in Ghana that I'm a part of, one in the US. We all speak the same language.
Okay, thank you for that. Lamide is asking, how long did it take you from when you got the certification to when you landed your first role?
You want to know the truth?
Yes.
Or you want me to tell you what I told them? I actually got my role, and I did this. I did the training for Scrum, but that was in Nigeria. I did the training. I said they sent a couple of us, but I never did the exam. Okay. And as I told you guys, my focus initially was on HR projects. Then this role came. I knew that I loved Agile, but I never did the certification. So I did the first interview, second interview, and I saw it looks like this thing is coming. I don't want to get into the organization and be the lowest on the link. So I went ahead to actually do it. So mine is a case of grace. If you're a believer, you know where that place is. I know this is a professional call, but there's something called grace. Mine is a case of grace. I actually got the job before I did my Scrum Master certification. I had only my PMP at the time.
That's awesome. So how would you describe a typical day for you right now with that combination?
Okay, so typical day, so we have working agreements in my team that we don't book a meeting before 9:30. So first 30 minutes of work day, which is 9 o'clock, I check my email and I check days, because my calendar is always full of meetings, because I facilitate all the Agile ceremonies, aka meetings that we have to do. So I need to check who I said they can come, who the important meetings, that ceremonies we have in the day. And by 9:30, we're jumping on the first call of the day, which we call the daily Scrum. Some people call it daily stand-up too, but we stopped calling it that because stand-up is not inclusive. Not everyone can stand. So it's called the daily huddle, just like what we're doing, but now it's daily, which typically answers the question, what did you do yesterday on the current sprint, on what the portion of the project we're working on? What are you going to do today? And are there any blockers or anything you need help with? It's not a solutioning question, meeting, but it's a meeting where we bring everything to the table. And if there's a need for further help, we move it to the parking lot, which is what I said, that's what we call it. We move it out of the meeting. It's a 15 minutes huddle. Everyone in the team will go round table, and we use whatever tool that we use to manage our projects. In our case, we use the Jira board. We work on your Jira board, and then you walk through those things. Afterwards, we have, someone's mentioned earlier on that we have what we call backlog. So based on our overall goal or objective or whatever problem we're trying to solve, we have to keep creating little granular actions that we can do as a team to get to the overall goal. And those granular actions are what we create as user stories. We put them in backlog. So we put them randomly as they come into our head, into the backlog, but we have to do something called a backlog refinement, which is basically whatever my thought is that I put into the backlog raw. We come together as a team, look at it together. I'll tell people what I was thinking when I was writing it. We reframe it based on the agile way. And this meeting, it can last up to 2 hours. You guys, you can't even, I mean, meetings, so some people call me here and I'm like, guys, I'm sorry, I can't talk. I'm all talked out, because in a day, I'm in meetings upon meetings upon meetings. After that, if after the daily stand-up, some people had things that they brought to the parking lot that we could not solve immediately. And because I don't want, the Scrum Master is also called like a servant leader. So literally, if I was in the office, not working remotely, and my team, they say they are focused on work and they need coffee, as the servant leader, I say, here's your coffee, continue the work. So what I do in the essence of being there with them is those problems, I will help them go and look for solutions while they are focused on their work. I'm their messenger, but I love it because I will do it anyway, but being paid for it is even a plus. So you go around helping people solution, helping them take off blockers that is, making them not get to their work. We do those backlog refinements. Before you know it, we have working sessions. The reason why I'm included in those working sessions is because I'm a subject matter expert, even though I shouldn't, but I joined because I don't want to just be a scheduler of meetings or just someone that talks. So I join those calls. We have working sessions that actually do the work. Then at the end of the sprint, which is at the end of 2 weeks, we have what we call sprint review, which is like another 2.5 hours meeting. Basically, we showcase individuals in the Scrum team will showcase what they did throughout the team. So if there's a deliverable, an artifact that needs to be showed, we look at it together as a team before we show it to the bigger team. We do what we call retrospective. If you're familiar with old way of project management, waterfall, is also known as lesson learned. So at the end of the 2 weeks, we look at what do we do great, we have to keep doing, what should we stop doing, and then based on based on all that, we will now have like action plans to put into the next sprint, which is the next iteration that I told, little bits of work. We do what we call sprint planning. So I've kind of like described they are all called ceremonies. And if you read the Agile Manifesto that I told you about in the Scrum Guide, you have an inkling of what they mean. They all have their meetings under the framework, but they are all meetings with different purposes. Sprint planning, basically, we're thinking ahead. So based on our overall goal, what can we do in the next 2 weeks? So we will set goals for the next 2 weeks, and we'll now tie those goals with the user stories that we have created. So it's a sequence. I could share it. There's a cycle that we have, because 2 weeks goes so fast, and the expectation is you have to deliver value every 2 weeks, irrespective of how small or minute or granular it is. So that's basically what we do. We run like headless chickens all over the place, but it's actually very cool. Because as HR professional, we're already doing it.
Already doing it, exactly.
We're already doing it. So
we'll take one more question from Lamide, which is, what would you consider the most difficult part of your job? And like, what do you do to stay focused?
I think that for me is stakeholders, like managing and working with people. sometimes it's quite exhausting. You will not believe it is exhausting sometimes, even for me that I like to talk and yeah. So, but I think that my passion for the, for the profession, maybe that's what I'll call it, because ultimate goal, I want to be one of those coaches that coach people. That's where I'm going anyway. I want to be an agile coach. I think that the passion that I have for it is what keeps me grounded. So there's no greater joy. Like we onboarded people on my team recently that are professionals in their own rights, specialists, as I said earlier, specialists in their field, but they had no clue about Agile or Scrum. So coming on the call with them, just explain to them with so much patience and the way I talk and everything. And then the next sprint, for example, they are doing exactly they're doing the things that I taught them, and they're getting it. There's no greater joy, coaching people and they're getting it,
Right.
it actually keeps me going because sometimes it's quite exhausting. There's several stakeholders. You really have to be someone that talks and like to put people together to actually enjoy this role, because you will talk and keep talking. And you have to be someone that lets people see the best in themselves, because sometimes the work is overwhelming. Like a lot of us are doing the work now. It's stressful, but you turn things around for the individual and tell them how great the work is and how, just letting them see the best part of the work they're doing and how it fits into the overall picture of the problem we're trying to solve. It goes a long way, and it gives you a lot of fulfillment as a Scrum Master or an Agile coach, to see people actually do their work and be excellent at it.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I think it's interesting to note that, given you're very extroverted, right? Like I can't imagine an introverted person, doing this, but what would you advise? Because obviously we do have that combination, right, in any field. So
Yeah.
what would you advise those that are not necessarily the most outgoing, if they have to take on this role? Like internally they're passionate, but what would you advise them?
Well, I'll say that, and honestly, we have introverted people as Scrum Masters in my company too.
Okay.
I think having a guide, the Scrum has a guide. All you have to do is follow it. And I think being an introvert is not an excuse not to put yourself out there. We are professionals, and irrespective of what role that you are, honestly, there's always that need to put yourself. You are going to work, we are going to collaborate. I'm not sure there's any role or profession right now in this day and age that will not require you to collaborate. Even developers that love to be in their own space have no choice now because they're in Scrum teams. So you don't need to be like me, like crazy. Friday, I start my daily stand-up with a dance. You don't need to be like me, honestly. All you have to do is follow the guide and ensure that you paint the guide your own way. So whatever the guide says, you have to bring it to light in your own way and join a community of practice. There's nothing new under the sun. By the time you find out how Tayo is delivering, how the next person is delivering, you put everything together. We all have that thing in us. You now bring it your way to your team. All you have to do is ensure that you are bringing the best out of them, irrespective of how you do it. Get help from everywhere that you can and just do it. Impossible is nothing. Being an extrovert isn't the only reason why I'm passionate about this role. There are introverts too that do the role. The good thing is there's a guide. So Agile Manifesto, Scrum Guide, and join a community of practice. If you're still excited about Agile and agility, then maybe that's how you get into tech.
Awesome. Well, I think we've heard it all. And given that we only have about 30 seconds on this, thank you so much, Taya. Thank you, everyone, for joining the call. I know a few of us may still have questions. Please feel free to put it in the WhatsApp group. And I'm sure Taya will join in every now and then to, put the response to that. And some other secret Scrum Masters among us, I'm sure. But thank you all and have a good evening. All right.
Sorry, before we go, please, ladies and gentlemen, let us plug into this opportunity. There is opportunity in this space. It's amazing. The money is great. You are going to have joy. So if you have it in you, position yourself, do certification, get a coach, reach out to me. I might not be always available because I'm all over the place, but I can direct you to the right position. Put yourself out there, be ready for those opportunities because they are there. Sooner or later, the world is going to move in that direction. And so we have to have people ready to take up those roles.
Okay, thank you. All right, everyone.
All right. Have a nice evening. Bye, everyone.
So much,
This was
Sarah.
nice. This was lovely. Bye.